All right, today we're diving into one of the most compelling and honestly tragic characters in modern literature, Gail Wynand from Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. This is the story of a man who literally gained the entire world, but in the end lost his own soul. So, picture this. A man at the absolute pinnacle of his power, in his penthouse overlooking the city he owns, and he says this, "I am going to die." And then he yawns. It's an incredible introduction, isn't it? It tells you everything you need to know. This is a man who has conquered the world, has everything anyone could ever want, and feels, well, nothing. Just boredom. So how does a person get to that point? Well, to really get a handle on Wynand's fall, we first have to understand just how high he climbed. His story is, on the surface, this classic American rags to riches tale. But believe me, it's got a much darker philosophical twist. And it all starts in the gritty streets of Hell's Kitchen. I mean, Wynand's rise was just meteoric. A true self-made man, right? He dragged himself up by his bootstraps, teaching himself to read, to write, to fight. The thing that fueled him was this brilliant mind, but also a really, really cynical take on human nature. He figured out early on that people don't actually want to be enlightened. Nope, they want to be shocked. They want to be entertained. So that's what he gave them. He built the New York Banner from the ground up by giving the mob exactly what it craved. And this line right here, "You don't run things around here," this is the key to everything. This is the phrase that was hammered into him as a kid in the slums, a constant, burning reminder of his own powerlessness. Think about it. Every single thing he did after that, every company he bought, every person he controlled, was all a desperate, lifelong attempt to make sure that no one could ever say that to him again. Okay, so he gets all this power, but here's the tragic irony, the fatal flaw in his whole life. The very power he built, this massive empire, wasn't really his. It was all built on a huge philosophical compromise, because his power depended entirely on other people, on their opinions, their tastes, their whims, and Ayn Rand has a very specific name for this kind of soul. She calls it a second-hander. So what does that mean? A second-hander is someone whose primary concern is what other people think. They don't have a solid sense of self, a self-sufficient ego. Instead, they live through the approval of others. Their self-esteem isn't earned from their own work or judgment. It's borrowed. It's second-hand. And this right here is the fundamental battle in the book, and really the battle inside Gail Wynand's own soul. You've got the first-hander, the creator, who lives by their own truth. And then you have the second-hander, the parasite, who lives off the opinions of others. Here's the tragedy. Wynand was born with the mind and the potential of a first-hander, a real creator, but he chose to live as a second-hander. He built his power by catering to the very masses he looked down on. So this massive internal conflict is just simmering under the surface of Wynand's life, and it's all about to come to a head, because a person is about to walk into his life who will act as a perfect, unflinching mirror, forcing Wynand to see what he's become. And that person is the architect, Howard Roark. When Wynand offers Roark a major commission, he asks him why he'd take it. And Roark's answer is just this. "I like your work." That's it. No flattery, no agenda. Just a simple, direct, first-hand judgment. For a guy like Wynand, who lives in a world of back-scratching and public relations, this kind of raw honesty is like a lightning bolt. It's totally alien to him. And it's the beginning of a friendship that is going to change everything. You see, when Wynand looks at Roark, he sees the man he could have been. He sees total integrity, a man who lives by his own code and doesn't give a damn what anyone else thinks. And Roark's very existence just throws Wynand's entire life into sharp relief. It makes all his power, all his success built on pandering to the mob, feel like one giant hollow joke, a betrayal of the man he was supposed to be. And this all leads to the climax of Wynand's story. Howard Roark is put on trial, a huge public spectacle. And for Gail Wynand, this is it. This is his one shot at redemption. For the first time in his life, he decides he's going to use his massive, powerful newspaper empire not to pander, but to fight for something he actually believes in, to fight for an ideal. And look at this. This is Wynand at his most powerful, and also at his most mistaken. He is absolutely convinced that he runs the world. He tells Roark, "They'll think what I want them to think." He launches this huge crusade in his paper, The Banner, to defend Roark. He truly believes he can command public opinion and force the world to see the truth. This is his big test. Well, the test fails. And not just a little bit. It fails spectacularly. It turns out the mob that he spent his entire life creating and feeding, they don't care about his ideals. They don't want to be led towards justice. They just want what they've always wanted, sensationalism and to feel like they're part of the crowd. The moment Wynand tries to swim against the current, they abandon him. The banner's circulation just tanks. And that's when the horrifying truth hits him. The power he thought he had, it was never really his. It was an illusion, basically on loan from the very people he thought he controlled. The advertisers, the unions, the stockholders, the whole machine he built is now coming for him. It's like he built a monster, and the moment he tried to tell it what to do, it turned around and decided to eat him instead. So here he is, cornered. Everything he's ever built is about to crumble, destroyed by the very forces he created, and he's left with one last terrible choice. Does he save his empire? Or does he save his soul? And his surrender, it's not some loud, dramatic explosion. It's just two quiet words. All right. That's it. With that, he gives in. He agrees to turn on Roark, to publish the condemnations. He betrays his friend, he betrays himself, and in that one moment, his spirit just breaks. It's the moment the man truly dies. And only then, after he's lost everything that mattered, does he finally get it. He finally sees the truth. He was never the one in power. He was never a king. He was just a mirror, reflecting back the ugliest parts of the mob he served. Just a piece of tin on the pavement, as he says, for everyone else to run over. And in one of the most powerful scenes, he's just walking through New York City and he looks up at the skyscrapers, these massive symbols of creation, of integrity, the very things he'd always secretly loved. And he realizes those were his real peers. That was the world he belonged in. He looks at them and knows he's betrayed them because he was born to be one of them, a creator, and he chose to be a servant. So in the end, the real tragedy of Gail Wynand isn't that he failed. No, it's that he succeeded so completely, but on terms that completely hollowed him out. And his story leaves us with a really tough question, one that's just as relevant today. Can power ever be redeemed if it was built on compromise? Can you really serve the worst in people and then hope to use that power for the best? It's something to think about.